Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. Um, First of all, this is Bob Coppedge, CEO, Grand Poobah, Simplex-IT, and this is the first webinar I have done in several months, so bear with me. This is also being recorded for YouTube purposes, and we will hopefully have this up before the end of the week, certainly. There's also a form that we are presenting that's a very, very simple form, but if you did get to this thing through registration, we will be sending you a link to the YouTube video as well as the document that we're talking about using. So we have paused or muted the microphones. So if you have any questions, please use the chat window. And as always, if you guys make this interactive, it makes it a lot more interesting and it's more appropriate to, for what you're looking for out of this. So that said, this is a little bit of a different webinar in the sense that we have pretty much always done just Office or Office 365 webinars, and we just thought we'd give a shot at trying a webinar that was specifically on the administrative side, and we'd love to get some feedback on that to see if that's something we should continue doing. So please give us some honest feedback, good, bad, or indifferent. And the first topic we thought we'd go with, because we've had this discussion with a lot of our clients and our customers, is basically former employees. What do you do when someone leaves the organization? A couple of real quick things to go through first is our upcoming stuff, and actually I still have that April 4th line that obviously is long past. We've got a webinar project online. We're doing an Office webinar, project webinar, and then we've got an IT policy and procedure workshop coming up. If you get our newsletter, you'll see all of that information, so I won't go through that. There is one special offer in Office 365. If you are looking to implement Office 365 or you're interested in converting to the CSP model, which if you're paying directly to Microsoft, then you're paying the advisor model. If you're willing or looking to do either one of those things, which is converting to the CSP model, it's the exact same product, exact same price. You just pay us instead of Microsoft. We can actually do this. You get one free Office 365 service as an incentive, and it's the exact same product. There's really no migration or anything along those lines. So info at simplex-it for more information on that. Okay, cool. Enough of that stuff. Now, let's get into what we are going to be talking about. And what we're going to be talking about is really the administration of former employees. What do you do when someone is leaving the organization? Some of what we're going to be talking about is really not administrative or is not technical from the standpoint of the geek side. Some of it is really procedural and organizational, and we'll talk about that a little bit. But some assumptions here. And we're going to get a little bit into the Office 365, the administrative portal, and all of that kind of fun stuff. First of all, you need to have global admin rights in Office 365. That means that you have the God power, if you will, to make changes. There are some subsets of the global admin rights, user admin rights, all that, where you can do some of these functions that we're going to be talking about, but global admin rights is the easiest thing to do. When we show you the admin portal, which is the website portal.office.com, Microsoft constantly changes the portal layout, and when they change the portal layout, they don't change it to everybody at the same time. So we are using right now the new version and can roll back if we want to. What I show you specifically, it's there in the older version as well. It's just not in the exact same place. The third is AD, Active Directory synchronization, is not implemented for purposes of this conversation. There's only a couple of spots where that matters. Active Directory synchronization is where your Active Directory, which is your local network, controls the passwords for your Office 365. That way, there's not two sets. I have my local network password and I have my Office 365 password. The synchronization is automatic. If it is, an AD-Sync is free. It is not a fee. This is not the same thing as ADFS, which is Active Directory Federated Services, where you're truly integrating and connecting your Active Directory up with Azure. This is AD-Sync is free. The only difference is password changes need to be done in Active Directory. And we're also strictly going to be talking about using the web portal. We're not going to be using PowerShell as the tool. You absolutely can. I am more of a GUI person than a PowerShell person, but there's ways you can do it in PowerShell as well. Pretty much anything you can do in GUI, you can do in PowerShell. So I'm going to make those assumptions. And again, anybody has any questions, just use the chat window and feel free to ask questions or anything along those lines. Okay. So here is the first question that is always, whenever we talk to, actually I'm going to start with the form. So this is a very generic form for employee exit form for Office 365 purposes only. And the first question, of course, is, do we block access immediately? So do we want to prohibit someone, and obviously this is a situation where the parting of company is immediate. We want to get rid of that connection. We want so that they can't access their email, or we can limit it as much as possible, in which case we want to know that right out of the gate. We also want to know what their employee name is. We want to know what the employee email is, and what is their last date? When do we want to cut them off? So if their last date is next Friday, then it would be whatever the date for next Friday is. So what we want is just very simple. Who are they? When are they leaving? What's their email? And then current mailbox. If you think about it from the standpoint of, we have really two main questions. One is, what happens, or actually three, I'll say, what happens to that person's historical mailbox? What happens to all of the data? When I talk about a mailbox, I also include their contacts and their calendars, as well as basically everything you see or that person sees in Outlook. What do we want to have happen to that history? And you'll notice we're talking about convert to a shared mailbox. And we'll talk about specifically what a shared mailbox is, but that's a really powerful and not used enough tool for former employees. And it's free, part of the Office 365. And then the question is, who has access to the mailbox? And we're talking about immediately. So if a person in accounting, for example, is leaving, someone who deals with payables, that person's supervisor, you may want to say, I want that person to have, whoever is taking over the responsibility, we want that person to have access to that mailbox. Okay? And then that's the first question. The second question is future email. What happens down the road to an email that is sent? Let's say the person is leaving today. What happens to an email that is sent to that person's email address tomorrow? And this is one of those where it can go a couple different ways. And this is one where you have to have a talk with your organization to get a feel for what the answer to that question is. And it can be different depending upon the role of that individual. If you have someone who is an accounting clerk or something along those lines, you may actually say, that person's email will ultimately go away. So John Smith was replaced by Susie Jones. So ultimately John Smith's email is going to go away and it will all be Susie Jones. We also may say, well, no, Susie Jones is going to get email from now on from that if you send it to John Smith, because it's the same role, the same position. It's up to you how you want to formulate that. Whatever you do, you're wrong. And what I mean by that is, if, let's say, again with John Smith, let's say that John Smith subscribed to newsletters galore and gets all sorts of junk mail and all sorts of, just, pardon my French, flotsam and jetsam that has absolutely nothing to do with his job. Well, do we really want to put that onto Susie? In which case then we can maintain it so it still goes to his old mailbox, but she can go and visit it and see what's going on. So, do we want to forward the future email? And then, and we don't want to forget this, what do we do about any other data? Now, and we're strictly talking Office 365. One of the things we forget about is OneDrive for Business. OneDrive for Business, the individual can store up to 1 terabyte of data on his or her account. If we get rid of that account without taking that into consideration, we have 30 days before that data is irretrievable. Okay, I want to repeat that. You have 30 days. When you remove mailboxes, when you delete accounts, Microsoft maintains those in 365 for about 30 days, and then they are gone for good. So, and we'll talk about getting rid of subscriptions in a moment. And then finally, and this is on the second page or the back of this page, is what do we want to do with mobile devices? This is where we have to be really careful, because we can disconnect mobile devices and connections for software and all that, but it'll still retain the data on their phones, on their laptops, on their desktops. We can get a little bit more aggressive, but the problem is, especially with mobile phones, if we wipe those, we potentially and probably wipe everything, depending upon the phone and other pieces, parts. In which case, if that person, if it is their own personal phone, we may remove the programs that they installed for themselves, and that can create a whole bunch of problems. Okay, so wipe mobile device, be real careful about using that. Okay, any questions on this form so far? Okay. So, we're calling it the former employee FE now. One of the other things, this gets back to that 30-day, is whether or not, and this we've seen this happen in some cases where the employee, he or she knew that he or she was leaving, and they went ahead and they deleted a whole bunch of stuff. And by deleted, I mean they deleted out of their inbox, and then they went and deleted out of their deleted items as well. So it's gone. Well, not really. You can actually retrieve data for, again, the 30 days, as long as they didn't go in. There's some recovery options that they have. You can recover data that's been removed from the deleted items folder as well for 30 days. So you want to find out quickly whether or not that person went ahead and did that. Okay? And again, what happens to historical email, what happens to future email sent to that address, what happens to 365 license that's assigned to that former employee. And we'll cover all three of these things. One of the things that I also talk to companies about is, at what point do you actually drop that email address? And in my opinion, the answer is close to never. Just simply because if we are, especially if that person has any connection with the outside world, we run that opportunity that I gave someone a business card 3 years ago, and I left 2 weeks later, the company 2 weeks later, and it's only today that person sees the card and go, oh yeah, that's the guy who I met and I want to talk to him. Well, if my email address doesn't exist anymore, then that is a lost opportunity for communication. Whereas if I make that email address either a shared mailbox that somebody pays attention to, or an alias of whoever took over my spot, then that email is actually seen and retrieved. So this is one of those, and you could have situations, I've seen circumstances where a CEO leaves a company or a CFO leaves a company, and they talk about, well, we want to get rid of that email entirely. In my opinion, especially if you've got the materials out there, you've posted white papers or press releases, and it has that kind of information for that person's name, you kind of want to hang on to that, because that's actually a corporate asset, is that contact information. So, shared mailboxes. A shared mailbox is a mailbox in that it can contain email, it can contain calendar, it can contain contacts. It's everything that a normal mailbox is in Office 365. And it requires no license. It is free. You can have as many of these as you want. However, a shared mailbox can only be accessed by someone with a licensed 365 mailbox. So there's two common uses for shared mailboxes. One would be where, let's say, for example, you have a quality assurance mailbox for your organization, and you have 3 employees who have their own mailboxes, but they're also responsible for this quality assurance mailbox. Well, those 3 employees all have their own 365 license, but they also can use cooperatively. They also can access and use this mailbox, and it shows up just like a mailbox, a second mailbox in your Microsoft Outlook, or you can open it up in the portal, the web portal. And you can continue to send and receive email using that email address. So in this case, the quality assurance can send and receive emails from quality assurance instead of from user A, user B, or user C. And similarly, we can do the same thing for the former employee. So we can create a shared mailbox using their current mailbox as a starting point for the former employee, and we can continue to send and receive emails using that former employee's mailbox. And we'll show that in a second as to how that works. So, how do we want to remove an employee? First of all, we want to block user access to Office 365 data and email. Really, we want to reset the password. We can do the block access as well, and I'll show on both of those. Now this is one, and I'm actually showing you our own dog food. So we have, and we're using Active Directory Sync, so I can't actually reset passwords here. What I can do is I reset the password on our network, and that will automatically go in. And I'm right now in the 365 Administrative Center and looking at active users. So if I change the password for them to log on to the network, that will change the password here as well. And then the next thing I can do is I can go into the Exchange Administrative Center, and actually one of our employees, Freddie, just took a spot. He's basically going back to school. So I'm going to go here into the mailboxes, live demos. So we've already changed the password. While we're waiting for that, you can also go to the user and change the sign-in status to sign-in blocked. So now, not just have we changed it so that there's a different password, even if they somehow got the password, their sign-in is blocked. And then I'm going to go back over to the mailboxes, and I'm going to go over to Freddie, and it's real simple, convert to a shared mailbox. Do I want to convert this regular mailbox to a shared mailbox? Yes, I do. And this will take all of the data that is part of this, again, calendar, contacts, deleted items, inbox, everything, and turn it into a shared mailbox, and will continue to receive email. Depending upon the size of the mailbox and how Office 365 is feeling in terms of busyness and all that, this can take a moment, and this can take a couple of 10, 15 minutes. So now we're done, and you see we have a category for shared mailboxes. Here's a couple of them. So now I can go to the shared mailbox, edit it. You notice I even have the ability to convert it back to a regular mailbox. And here I can say delegation, So who has full access to that mailbox? Now, if we had a person who was taking over for Freddie, we can give that person. I can give it to Freddie's boss, to Kevin. I can give it to whomever. And it's very simple. And you can give it to multiple users. And you can just give send as only, but we're going to give full mailbox. And if you're familiar with the 365 usage, you'll see most of this is exactly the same as it is for the normal mailbox. You can add aliases to it. You can automatically forward email. You can do all sorts of things to it. So what we've just done here is we've taken Freddie and we've turned him into a shared mailbox, and then we've given myself, in this case, access to his shared mailbox. The next time I open Outlook, I will have an additional mailbox down to the bottom left that is his mailbox. And if I go into that mailbox and I manipulate emails, I send and receive, those emails will be from him. So I've got full flexibility. Now, I want to be clear. I needed to have admin rights to set this up. I do not need to have admin rights to have rights to that person's mailbox. Okay? So, another thing that I might have, we'll go back and edit it. I might want to go into Mailbox. Is it the features? The features, and I'll go to Mail Flow, and I can specifically forward emails to somebody else. So if I really don't want to have to go to that person's email address, I can instead go to have the email, basically the emails come to me. So I can forward the emails to somebody else. And I can still have them go to Freddie's mailbox, so I can do a combination thereof. Fairly straightforward. And I can do that regardless of, actually, if I still had Freddie on as a regular mailbox. I've got the same capabilities there. And let's just do one more thing now. Now with Freddie, he's blocked. He's still got this license. Well, I don't want to pay for his license if he's not here using it. Now that I've moved his mailbox off, I've no reason to keep the license. So the shared mailbox is a great tool. And you can open it either in Outlook or you can open it using the portal. If you go into Microsoft the online for your email, you can open other people's mailboxes as well, assuming you have access to them. Okay. So we migrated to a shared mailbox. We've identified the caretakers, and the caretakers can be temporary. Until we replace this position, we're going to forward or give people access to a particular, to that mailbox. And we can either forward or give access or a combination thereof, and it's easy to change or maintain moving forward. We can also wipe and block the user's mobile device. Again, I'm not going to get into that one because that's one that can cause you problems. And then the access to a former employee's OneDrive. There's not an easy way to do this one, not that I found anyway. You pretty much need to impersonate that user and then download it and move it to someplace else. So you're a little bit on the Amish side for this one. Okay? So any questions on this? Okay. Is this useful? I got a yes! Hooray! I got 2 yeses. Okay, all right. This is really, my ego's doing good. Okay. So, here's the thing is for your organization, talk with your HR, talk with your management. And what you want to do is you want to just basically say, what do we want to do normally for employees that are leaving? And from that, you build the form. And again, we'll send you the form by the end of the week, so that you don't have to get into this. Because one of the challenges we've had, and this is one of the, and we're building this process ourselves right now, is we get into this dialogue every time about, well, what do you want to do with the guy's emails? Well, we want to do this. We don't know. If you instead come up with a, here's what we're going to do when an employee leaves. And this is the standard, here's the form, and the only reason anything has to get interesting is if it's not the default. Because 9 times out of 10, it's really not, it doesn't have to be as complicated as it ends up being. If we just, think about it and have a consistent answer. It's kind of like the whole thing about, hey, where do you want to go to dinner? I don't know, where do you want to go? I don't know, where do you want to go? If we actually just had an answer already, we would save the challenge. So if we had a process or procedure in place, then we'd only have to worry about it when it changes. So, let's see. And the shared mailboxes, we talked about that. And that actually, and I see we're just about out of time. Any questions on any of this? So I'm waiting to hear back from anybody. A couple of things that are different. Again, if you do not have, if you have Active Directory or DirSync involved, the only real difference is that when you make the change to the password on Active Directory, the network license, and then it'll propagate up to the cloud. You probably want to actually go online and block online access as well. Again, wiping the phones, I would not do that unless you really want somebody's data to be gone. So what are we leaving someone with who's left us and we're concerned about what data they have? If they had the ability to install Outlook at home, so they had an E3 license or they had Outlook or the like, they pretty much have a copy of their contact list and the calendar and their inbox and mailbox prior to being let go. And there really isn't that much you can do about that. We can talk all you want about security procedures and the like, but by and large, you're stuck with that. Same thing as if they are doing OneDrive for Business. There are some tricks you can get around it. If you deleted their items while they were still connected, there may be some synchronization tricks, but be careful on that. There's some ways that can get back and bite you in the tuchus. Okay, so that's pretty much it. Again, we would love some feedback, especially if you are interested in seeing more Office 365 admin. We'd love to hear some topics back from you. And I think that is it. And thank you all very much for attending. Bye.